You guys have great podcasting voices, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you,
Well,
actually,
Scott.
I was gonna be humble and be like, we've worked on it, but that's people have told us that since the beginning.
My brother said he wants me to like read him a children's book so he can go to bed. I'm like,
You can make some money off
think
that.
about it.
No, when I was listening to some of
that's what I told him.
the episodes, I was like, wow, this is top notch. I mean, when I saw your studio setup, I was shocked.
Wait, what did you mean?
I was.
You
In
were
a
like,
good way,
this
or-
podcast sounds incredible, and then you walked in, you were like,
No, no, not at all. It was just, I think you guys do a great job with it, and you guys have great voices.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, man.
I was thinking about the same thing, except for with your name. I think your name's top
Thank you.
notch. Scott Apple. It's a really cool name.
There's so many people that think it's a fake. So many.
Oh yeah, like a stage name.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I saw your first ever Instagram post, unless you deleted some from, and it's you holding an apple.
Seen your picture,
and I was like, I like this guy. That's just
it was my I had a friend's mom do it, like one of my best friends in high school. We don't talk anymore. It's sad.
That is sad.
But
you mean your friend or your mom's?
I talk to her pretty much every week. No.
Oh gosh.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Freshly Squeezed podcast. As a reminder, we are in season 3, and this season our theme is doing what you can with what you have. So the concept of if you have a God-given passion or you're pursuing something specific, and you may not have all the resources you need, or some kind of circumstance isn't where you'd ideally like to be. But we're talking about and being inspired by conversations about people who are doing what they can with what they have and pursuing those passions and doing well in them, and letting the Lord lead in that process. And someone I thought who embodies that really well, my friend Scott, we have here today. And a little bit about Scott. He's one of my favorite new friends in the greater Knoxville area. And I've admired this guy for his genuine care for people and music. I recently had the privilege of playing a show with him at Honeybee Coffee, and I'm looking forward to both of us playing a Halloween house show next month. I already have my costume picked out. The first time,
which is what?
I am going to be a Wes Anderson character. If you've seen The Life Aquatic, if you're 17 years or older and have seen The Life Aquatic, they all wear the same kind of color scheme. And there's this one character that just kind of plays guitar in the background. He has no other role but to like serenade the crew. So I picked out a blue jumpsuit.
Oh, you already have it?
No, I haven't ordered it yet. And I'm going to get a red beanie and maybe get a Team Zizou patch.
That's sweet.
That's super cool.
So I'm going to get up and play a set wearing that. And maybe just wear that around the rest of the month, or like the rest of the year even. But actually, the first time I met Scott, he asked if I'd be down to drive to Missouri with him and his squad to lead worship at a camp with like a few days notice. And spoiler, I didn't end up going. But I really did try to move some stuff around. I had to go to a wedding, and I was literally like, they won't notice that I'm not there. But I went. I wanted to celebrate that with them. But I seriously considered that a spontaneous adventure with Scott. But alas, we live super close together in South Knoxville. I could probably yell off my porch. But Scott's a talented musician, worship leader, coffee expert, and is becoming a dear friend. Without further ado, Scott Apple.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah,
that's so kind. I wasn't expecting that. I almost started tearing up.
Gosh, wouldn't be the first time I've made Scott cry.
That's true,
Dude, I think
Really?
you've
What?
passed on like your empathy to me. I was on the phone with somebody yesterday and they were just talking and I was like tearing up. And I'm like, I feel like Scott Apple. Well, tell us a little bit. Who is Scott Apple?
Oh man, is it pretentious to say I'm still finding out?
No, I love that.
Oh man, I can tell you the things I'm really passionate about and the things I really want to be passionate about. And it's
Totally.
actually just a kind of the conversation I've been having with the Lord recently is just wanting to make sure that the things that are important to Him are the ones that are important and that matter to me. And so a lot of that has to do with I'm a guy that really, really, really wants to love people well. One of my favorite things to do is to be able to get to meet a bunch of different people, especially working in coffee. Like it's a really just a privilege to kind of have people come in from all over the country and stop downtown and get to talk to them.
Mhm.
I'm really passionate about beauty and things that can be beautiful.
Mm.
I was reading a book and it was just talking about how we do kind of live in this it's called like they're calling it like certain moments, if you see somebody panhandling or things like that, it's like this broken shalom.
Mm.
And so just like that idea that what is not whole is meant to be whole.
Mhm.
And I think we get pockets of that, and so I'm really passionate about doing that through art and through music and through relationships. And I'm new to Knoxville. I've been here for 2 years. I grew up outside of Chicago from a Christian household, and then kept that tradition alive and live in a Christian household now. So, yeah, we're all about it. We've got little live, laugh signs, live, laugh, love signs all over the house. And no, I'm
Hobby
just
Lobby.
kidding.
You and the
Pretty
cliches.
funny name.
I'm big into it. I'm a big cliche guy.
I'm still figuring it out.
Pretty redundant. So yeah, that's kind of. Is there anything else? I think that encapsulates a lot of me, I think.
I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
We'll get to know more of you
Yeah.
over the course of this podcast.
Sure. We'll find out more together.
I kind of want to know. I kind of want to know why you think, or why you said he's emotional. Like what event happened that you're like, wow, he's an emotional person.
He's not wrong.
The
I'll
word
let
I
you
used
know.
was empathetic.
Gotcha.
Empathetic, empathy. It's a virtue, actually. Just the way he connected when I played a song that I wrote. That like it was actually the second person who had like a physical emotional reaction to me playing it, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this.
There it is, man. Sutri, listen to it. It's so good. I'm gonna plug you on your own podcast.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy.
It's so good. No,
You can come on anytime you want, Scott.
yeah, when I get a podcast, you guys are more than welcome to come and plug me. So,
Yes. Hey, we'll produce it.
It's a very thoughtful
Yeah, of
invitation.
course.
Yeah.
I'm an emotional, thoughtful guy.
Empathetic.
Thank you. I do. I cry a lot. It's true.
Dude, that's good, man. Yeah, I think it's good to be emotionally in touch with yourself and let it out, man.
I try.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, one thing we do every single time, well, except for last time I forgot with my friend Jonah, but one question we like to ask is what is fresh on your mind? So like what's something recently that you've been learning, or that just kind of maybe you didn't plan on learning, it just kind of hit you in the face and you're like, wow, that's profound. But what's something you can share with us that's fresh on your mind?
Yeah, man. That idea of just like wanting things that matter to God to matter to me. That's been like super. I mean, it's just like with busyness, or whether it's like like things that look like inconveniences that aren't actually inconveniences and things like that. So those are like that's like super big right now, and just like a constant kind of prayer and just like idea of just like that, but also wanting to something I'm really like convicted, really just like been thinking, like mulling over, is just like this idea of the people I've been hanging out with, and like comparing it to literally this morning, just thinking about like comparing it to the people that Jesus hung out with, and like, is it lining up? Am I just surrounding myself with people that look like me, talk like me, think like me, or am I actually being intentional with getting to know those that are opposite of me, people that would be like kind of harder to love in a sense of like unfamiliarity, I suppose.
Sure.
So yeah, those two things.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit more? You used the word art a couple times. Could you kind of hone in on what that means for you and give us a brief overview of your artist journey and where you're at right now?
Yeah. I guess art in general, what I would view as art is just, man, I don't know. That's an in-depth question, huh?
What is art, Scott?
Well, what type of
You
art?
take it when you're in like 5th grade. I don't know, man. No, art to me is like just anything that's a creative outlook on life, I suppose. So I think it has many different forms. People can, pizza. You can make pizza an art form. You can make lattes. That's an art form. So anything that can be crafted, and I think that you put a lot of intentionality behind, can potentially be art.
Totally.
Specifically for me, what it looks like is creatively, I like to write a lot, and I like to create music. And so those are the ones that kind of like I hone in on. And so I've been doing both since I was a kid, but haven't really done it like where I was like very intentional to a point where it's like,
right.
It was like, oh, this is something that's really fun and relaxing to me. And as a kid, you're not realizing like, oh, this is very life-giving, and this is something that I'm And so, yeah, writing music is in songs and stuff like that has been a long time coming. Really started doing it intentionally in college because therapy was hard and expensive. So I decided to write songs instead and just kind of continue doing it. I'm kind of I go into phases where there's a lot of different steps in the process, but in the summer has been just really good for getting thought to paper and writing down lyrics before I even put melodies and things. So maybe some will be poetry.
Right.
I've never really been good at writing poems. I try, but
yeah.
So
you do you think most of your writing comes out through music, or do you do a lot of like journaling or writing?
Yeah, lots of
just thoughts down.
Lots of thoughts, lots of journaling. Some like flash fiction, which I try and write short stories and stuff like that.
Cool.
So, but it's hard. It's hard for me to, because a story has to be like really thought out and long. And it seems like I'm always editing while I'm writing, which is a big no-no because it's impossible to do it.
Yeah.
And then songs are like just super short stories where they don't even have to make sense half the time. Like it's just like you just jumped all over the place, and in writing you have to be like, here's the plot.
I just realized that the concept that you just explained is that songwriting is just lazy poetry.
It can be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's times where it's like, okay, this I can use, because these verses don't connect, I can just say it's just artist liberty,
And I think some artists would say that. Like, I mean, I know a lot of musicians where it's the first take is kind of what they go with. And it's just like,
just off the top.
Yeah.
Wilco kind of writes like that.
Sure.
If you've looked into some of Weezer's songs that don't make any sense, My Name is Jonas. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
They didn't even try to make it make sense. They just were like, this sounds good together. We're just going to write random words.
Yeah.
I mean, usually the choruses and the hooks kind of like come together. But Buddy Holly by Weezer is just nonsense. And I love it.
Yeah. There's a band called the French Cassettes over in San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
And they had like a radio show that I called in on. And so their lead singer, I was like, where do you get the inspiration for your lyrics? And he goes, I just kind of do the first ones that come to mind, which a lot of times works out because a lot of writers sing from their heart, like a lot of musicians. But in poetry, I feel like it's just so much harder because there's just so much space.
Yeah.
And then, people are like, so you can't, I've got lines that if you just read them, you'd be like, okay, so this is pretty dumb, but you put it to a beat and it's like, this is dope.
Yeah. Like that song Parachute I played for you. Like the words just came to me and it's like 4 words.
Yeah.
Have either of you listened to Poetry Unbound?
No.
Oh, it's such a good podcast. It's this Irish person who just reads poetry. Some of it is written poetry, some of it's made to be spoken. But he reads them and then he like interprets them in his own way, and then he reads them again. It's like short 15-minute episodes that are really good for like unwinding. If I'm like having a stressed out day and like need to unwind before I go to work, I'll just sit down on the porch and listen to poetry Unbound. Shameless plug.
Heck yeah.
We're not sponsored. Okay, so did you have any other thoughts on that of just like your artist journey? You're a musician. I would love to read some of your writing sometime.
Oh,
if you're at a place where you're like, I would love to share this with someone.
Yeah, man. I think we've talked about one of our first conversations where it's like it's not something that I like put out there, but I put a lot of thought into a lot of my lyrics a lot of times, and all it takes is one person to be like, "What's that line mean?" And I'm like talking for about 45 minutes of just like, and that's that line. So let's move on to the next one, you know. So there's certain songs where I could really, like Halloween, like I went off on, and I was just vomiting this information, giving you 15 years of backstory. Be like, well, this is what happened as a kid, so that's why this line said this. So
have you ever thought about doing like a commentary on your music?
I have,
dude,
because I think 21 Pilots does that, or at least there probably a lot of people do that. But I think they have a whole album with the music playing in the background, and they just talk about it.
Dude,
that's
talk
sweet.
about all the thoughts.
Can we do that? Can we record
it is cool.
your commentary?
Yeah,
like have sit down and like really intentionally record some commentary on your songs.
I'd love to do that, as long as we do it for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack-o'-lanterns on the lawns, the candles illuminate the night that we see. Oh, it's killing me. Oh, Halloween, could you be good to me? Would you be good to me just for a night? It seems that you've been playing tricks on my old and weary heart, it seems.
I really love that song. I've listened to it on repeat.
I'm glad, man.
Yeah.
It's a fun one for me.
Well, I mean, I like melancholy sounding songs. And I love the cello.
Dude, shout out to Terry Boutte. Like, she's in Houston. I think she's working at a school. We were in a band called Vox Joy, and she made those songs that I played by myself come to life, man.
Dude, that's awesome. Can you tell us where we can listen to that right now?
Yeah, Vox Joy stuff. We've got 3 songs out, a small EP that we recorded 2 years ago. And it's on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, essentially all those spots that you can go listen. And Terry doesn't have a bunch of stuff out, but she's been in a ton of bands, and she's killing it, man. She's got one of the nicest touches.
That's awesome.
When it comes to playing the cello, man.
Yeah.
She makes the cello sound good. The cello doesn't make her sound good.
So that's awesome. Yeah, man. Well, I would love to hear more about your life as an indie artist in Knoxville. And also, for those listening, could you describe what an independent artist means?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think indie's kind of become its own genre of music. So I have 2 different kinds of thought. When I'm thinking of like an independent artist, it's just somebody that's kind of doing it on their own. Obviously, independent. That might be a redundancy.
Independent from what?
Yeah. So,
or who?
Traditionally speaking, it'd be like labels, or potentially even recording studios. And so anybody who's independent, in like the traditional word of the sense, when I think of it, I don't know, I just think of I think of it like just kind of DIY, like people who are just, maybe because there's a lot of indie artists that maybe wouldn't call themselves indie artists, and it's kind of just because maybe it's a hobby or something like that. But I think it really just kind of, I think it's a ideal that you can place upon yourself if you want or not. It's kind of just like that kind of label. So just people that might be working different jobs, just trying to support their hobby or their craft, or maybe those are just trying to get them to be, they're working in order to make it a full-time gig.
Sure.
So I think there's lots of different places to be within the realm of independent artist. There's a lot, and it's like one of the coolest. I mean, if you just look back in like the last 50 years of music, like that wasn't a thing,
right?
Like it's just, I think we've I've always thought like we've got the most music we've ever had released, which means we've got some of the worst music we've ever heard, because there's some people. If it's just, I mean, if you should just do it if you're passionate about it. Sure. Like I think if you can get a platform for it, but you've got people that really, I love to see people that might not have it still doing it because it's something that brings joy to their life. Like I think that's legit. And then you've got people that are uber talented, living in South Knox off of Hillwood Ave.
But I think a lot of that is there's been a lot of platforms and streaming services that have made that a possibility for people, specifically Spotify, and then also Distro Kid. Do you use Distro Kid? And would you like to talk about Distro Kid?
I actually don't use Distro Kid.
Oh, what do you use?
I use Lander.
Lander.
Yeah.
Tell me about Lander.
Lander. So Lander's a little bit of a newer platform.
Okay.
They got really into so when I was in college, that's when I started using it and released my music through it because I wasn't mastering.
Okay.
And so Lander is one of those AI mastering tools that is now focusing more on distribution than they are that AI mastering, which is good because it's not. It's good if you don't have the money to send it off and if you can't do it yourself.
Gotcha.
So I'm a big fan of Lander. It is one of the hipster, like I would say, like it's very niche. I don't know as many people that use it. Distro Kid and CD Baby are like in TuneCore. Those would be like the biggest ones, and obviously the last two dropping off. And the more I see people making music and stuff, Distro Kid is just going up. And
totally,
I think if I were to do it again, I probably would have gone through Distro Kid. Just I think there's a little bit more flexibility because they've been around longer. Mm-hmm. But Lander is a great option. It's do you have to pay for Distro Kid?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how much is it?
It's there's different plans. You can sign up as an artist, a band. No, an artist, an artist, a band, or a label.
Gotcha.
So like I think I'm at like the $35 a year tier, but I was already like had my mindset I was going to go through Distro Kid. This is a freshly squeezed. Oh, let me actually also talk about how we rebranded Freshly Squeezed Music, and it's now out on all platforms again under Fresh Grounds. So if you were a listener and weren't able to access it, you can now find it under Fresh Grounds. That whole EP is back up. But whenever I was getting ready to distribute, I had already planned on using Distro Kid, and I had made an account, but I hadn't paid for it yet. They sent me an email and they were like, "Hey, we see you're like about to check out. We're just gonna go ahead and give you like 20% off, like just to like sweeten the deal." They're like, "We got them on the hook. Let's reel them in." But in my mind, I've already decided I'm gonna use Distro Kid, and I got that email at work, and I was like, "All right, I'll do it tomorrow." They sent me another email and they were like, "We're gonna give you 40% off."
Oh man!
Wow. So it was just like I was like, okay, if this isn't the right thing to do, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
But for the listener, we're talking about. So you said, what did you call it that you use?
Lander.
Yeah. So Distro Kid, Lander. But these are distribution platforms. So if you're an artist, so think of big names like Justin Bieber. Most artists, I don't know if it's even most anymore, but a lot of well-known artists go through record labels, and they, whoever they're signed with or whoever they're represented by will do a lot of the business end for them, and they'll distribute the music. But if you're an independent artist, which is really, you're an entrepreneur. I was talking with Melissa Hale, and we were talking about like the balance between being an entrepreneur and being a creative. So independent artists, if you're not signed or represented, you'll submit your music to a distributing platform or website, and then they'll send it out to all the streaming services.
It's crazy how accessible.
Yeah,
I mean, we talked about that a second ago, but how accessible things are for people wanting to put their name out there, more so than it ever has been. For any sort of creative project like music or getting your name out there, if you do design, if you design things or podcasting, totally. Like you used to have so much money and so many like you have to know the right people. And now we have the access to do all of those things almost for free. It's pretty amazing to be able to. So like you said, there's a lot more content out there for music and all kinds of stuff. But it's also like getting people who wouldn't normally think they could make it, getting them to start actually like, maybe I could actually do this, which is awesome. That's such a cool place to be in.
And that's part of our goals as Freshly Squeezed, is to inspire others to just get out there and put stuff out, whatever their field may be. But in the content creation field, it's like more accessible than ever right now.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, so how would you describe, if you wanted to a little bit more, describe your life as an indie artist, but also like what portions of your music project is DIY?
Oh yeah. In terms of the second question, like 100% of it, all of it's kind of on my own, which is it's got pros and cons. Like it's fun to have. I mean, just as an indie artist, like you really are. You're an entrepreneur, and so you have to sell yourself. Like in terms of getting gigs, or in order to get your music to the right people and things like that, to try and even break into something. Or even just get it heard by, it's even sometimes just to get it heard by friends is like,
totally,
it's hard. I've been blessed with great people who not only enjoy it, but they want to enjoy my music, but want to have me talk about it on podcast and stuff, which it's such a blessing because not everybody gets that opportunity. So I do want to say I'm thankful. Just I'll take the time now.
Yeah, for sure, man.
For you guys and for your guys' platform and doing this. But yeah, I mean, it's 100% DIY, just from recording to getting from mixing, mastering, I mean, obviously I'm not the one making the connections with the companies and things like that, but even if you're just putting it through Distro Kid or Lander, it's you having to make that extra. Being an indie artist, man, you're just making extra steps all day long in order to get your product out there, get your thing. So it's a grind, but it's something that's like, I think, really worthwhile and can be really beautiful, especially when it's like reciprocated. But even if it's not, like we talked about, how there is, we've said it now 3 times, there's more content out there than ever before. And, there's the discouragement in that being like, well, like for a lot of indie artists, it's like, you kind of have to lie to yourself if you really want to make it in the industry. You have to, I think Mike Birbiglia, he's a stand-up comedian. He has a special. He also has a podcast that's really good.
Oh, cool.
Called Working It Out, which is like what comedians do a lot with their sets. They have to work it out a lot. But he talks about in one of his specials how he's getting started in comedy and how you have to really lie to yourself, where you have to, if you go and bomb on stage, it could be terrible. He's like, I threw up after a show and I just left. And, when he got home, his girlfriend asked him, like, how'd it go? And he goes, it went awesome. He's like, you have to lie to yourself a little bit in order to get yourself going. But for anybody, where am I going with this? For anybody that's like, there's so much stuff out there. There's no way that I'm going to be able to break into anything. There's like an encouragement of like, there's probably some of the best songs out there that have never been heard by people, because we do have a lot of music that's, probably subpar, less heart in it and things like that. But at the same time, there's so many different artists that you can discover. I truly think that this is more of a tangent. I apologize. But I truly think that
that's what this is all about, bro. Tangents.
It's just something I'm really passionate about. But I think there's a million listeners for nearly every artist out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like with the way that you can distribute it. Like, I think there's a million people out there that want to listen to Sutri. I know if I was a million different people, 1,000,001 would want to listen to Sutri.
Oh, I appreciate
It's a great song. And I like to think that there's a million people that could get behind me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like, that's the really cool thing about it is, but it's just that it's breaking into those next spheres and those next levels of getting your music out there. So
you use the term breaking in, and I'm just like wondering, just conjecture, have you listened to the podcast Creative Pep Talk at all?
I haven't.
Okay. That's a term that the host of that uses. But yeah, there's certain spheres of influence, and that you kind of have to break into. Like, but yeah, that's super cool. Oh, I had another thought on that. Oh yeah, like one thing I've been kind of racking my brain on is like, absolutely, there are a million people that would get behind your project. There are a ton of people that would resonate with my music in the way that I. Well, I mean, there's been connections that I've made with the music, and I'm like, oh, those are the people I'm like writing to. I mean, I'm writing to everybody, but like, it just resonates with people in different ways, and it's like most of the people that I interact with on social media are my close friends, people I love, but don't listen to indie folk, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm pouring all this time and energy into my social media, but I'm not reaching my audience, you know? Like I may be here and there and I may break into different spheres and we all have circles that intersect, but it's like, how much of my time and energy am I not catering to my audience? Not that my friends will love my music, but it's like we've talked about this of like who we get feedback from. Like I may get feedback from an incredible musician, but if they don't listen to my genre, like there's only so much they can add. So that's my little like, but platforms that can do that well, that can connect you to your audience. I think of, I'm not on Bandcamp, but I've heard Bandcamp does a great job of like helping people discover music that they already like, whether it be an algorithm. People talk about how valuable the TikTok algorithm is. I don't have a TikTok, but because I know I would spend too many hours on it. But apparently the algorithm is incredible. Like you watch like 3 videos and it already knows like your niche, like what kind of stuff you like. But anyway, sorry, that was just a long rant on like how do we get, maybe that's something as creatives, as a creative studio, and like as people who are collaborating in the same city and virtually, like how can we connect not only us to our audience, but how can we like lift other people up and get people, new Scott Apple fans, you know?
Right. Yeah. I guess, and a lot of the question for me is when deciding to go for your passion and hoping you connect with people, like what's the main goal? Is it to have like a ton of people and make sure you connect to as many people as possible, or is it to connect with those few people that really believe in you and will really be encouraged by what you put out into the world? Because I think it's really easy to feel discouraged when you're putting out content or putting out something, you put a lot of work and heart into it, and then you're like, oh, I love it and I feel great about it, and my wife loves it, and then I put it out and it's like no one does anything. You're like, crickets. Does that make it less of an impact to yourself, or should it discourage you because no one else sees it? And I mean, maybe it should. I don't like, that's more of a question, like what is it that you're doing it for? And I think that really kind of asking that question, maybe I'll ask you that question, like why do you love doing this? Is it, and I'm sure part of it, like for me with design, like I don't write music or anything like that, but with designing things or even like making something look just super perfect, like everything that I want to do or put out, I want it to look, and even details people will know, like won't even see, like this last graphic I made for episode 43, in Yoda's eyes there's a reflection of, like, it's obviously I brought it into the graphic, but in Yoda's eyes it's a reflection of what's on the paper.
Oh yeah.
You'd have to see
Wow.
it, but it's like no one will probably even notice that, but I want to
Yeah.
put like small detail, like I love doing that, and part of it's just like I'm there looking at it, I'm like, this is awesome, and it was just so much fun to me, it was life-giving, and I want other people to see it, but even if they don't, I think it's still life-giving to
Yeah.
me, and I hope to find those people who would be like, wow, that's awesome, I want to do that too, and encourage other people through that. But yeah, I guess what is your like motivation to do this? I know you get a lot of life from it yourself, but what's what's some motivations behind why you write your music and your poetry?
Yeah, I mean, man, I love the thing about like the little details and love with the Yoda. I saw the graphic. I did not see the paper, but I'm gonna go back and
Yeah, me too.
I don't know.
study it.
Yeah, I don't know if people would see it. It's on a phone
Yeah.
most of the time, so I don't know
But
if
no,
it's
yeah,
even
those
visible.
are. I mean, like I think we see that in design so much. Is just these little Easter eggs that we kind of put in, for ourselves, and a lot of times, yeah, the motivation I think that I have behind it is literally just to try and there's potential to connect with other people, especially during live performances, but there's a chance just to kind of like it's just fun, it's just it's a beautiful thing to be able to do, is just to release music, even and to talk about like the million people. Like, I'm not saying that in order of like, this is my goal is to get, but for just people that are like, well, what's the point? Like, there's beauty in doing it and getting nothing back, because it's just like the love of the game, like I love music. I've considered multiple times changing my name, like my name on Spotify or Apple Music, to Scott the Fan, because it's just like I'm just a fan of music, and a lot of the songs I've released are different genres of music that I really just like. But yeah, man, it's just be able to create. It's like who said it about? There's a poem about writing where it's like, don't do it unless it just absolutely
right.
Which we can get in. You don't have to get into the whole.
Well, I've heard that applied to a lot of different fields.
Yeah.
And like,
what is it?
Oh, it's this quote of I forgot who said it, but it's a writer that was writing this poem about like the fact that he was discouraging people from writing unless it's like something that like it would kill you if you didn't do, which there's different interpretations on if that's a valid like a thing or not, but yeah.
Well, yeah, me explaining like how difficult it is to reach your audience isn't a discouragement not to try. Like you were saying, like difficulty of being an indie artist is like when you're starting, you just gotta keep going. And like personally, I mean, I do it for the two. I do it for the one. If one person resonated with a song I wrote, but also like I do it because I can't do anything. Like I can't do anything else. Like I can't not make music.
Yeah.
And yeah. I was talking to my friend who lives in Nashville, and he was like, he's put music out before, and he was talking about if he should pursue music or not. And like we were just talking about that drive of like, can you see yourself doing anything else? Would you feel like a part of yourself would be lost if you didn't do this? I think that's the same thing with ministry too, of like, ministry is one of those fields where it's like, yo, if you're not crazy made to do this, maybe you should try something else.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think it can be a positive thing of like, yo, find what God made you and knitted you to do on this earth, and it's going to fulfill you even if you only connect with the one, because I mean, that's how Jesus did ministry. Like he focused on the one, and like he still does. Then he leaves the 99 for the one. But then comes back to the 99,
Yeah.
Man, I was just thinking about this the other day because for me, it's so easy to get caught up in all the work that I do and even creative projects and this, and which I love doing, but in and of itself, you can get burnt out really easy. And I do that often to myself, where I get so bogged down with all the tasks and things that I do that I'm like, man. And then I even question sometimes, like, should I even be doing this? Because I'm just like, this is not. I'm just tired. And every single time, what fuels me is Jesus. I mean, to be just completely clear, or blunt or straight to the point, it's Jesus, because I feel, maybe feel empty. I feel a little burnt out, and I'm like, why do I do this? And then I'm like, oh yeah, Lord, give me strength. And I pour back into what's just truly important. And then all of these things that I do with my life start to actually make sense again. I'm like, oh my gosh, why do I keep like going back to the source? And then I'm like, oh, okay, good. I had enough water. and I go back and start doing things on my own again. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so thirsty. Why am I even doing this? And then I go back to the source. I'm like, I need to pair those two things a lot closer on my everyday task, everyday living. Like that just needs to be a thing, and I'm working on it every day. But it's still what makes all of this so much more life-giving, and what makes it make sense. Like for when you're writing music and when you're putting things out there, it's the process of connecting with a creative, incredibly creative God, and using your creativity that he gave you to create something for you. And that in and of itself is just so life-giving. And then when you pour that out to other people and you're passionate about it, no matter what other people say, that's like, some people will be like, it's not my thing, but it won't even matter. Like that stuff won't even matter to you, you know? And then the people who do connect with it, they're not going to be, most of the time, they're not even just passionate about what you did, and they're passionate about you because you're passionate about it. You know, they see that your passion. So that
you good?
It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man.
I'm like tearing up over here.
Well, we spoke with Justin McRoberts, and he talked about how like no one is showing up to see you fail. Like people that come to Scott Apple shows aren't gonna be like, man, I sure wish he misses that chord, you know, like. And then if you do make a mistake or you sing your own lyrics wrong, like they're there to cheer you on, you know, like, you know, like people show up to see you succeed, and don't have like a standard for you to meet. They're just like on fire for you, you know, or at least that's what we tell ourselves.
That's good.
Well, what have been some obstacles and limitations to being an indie artist for you?
There's a lot, especially in the realm of, which is big, I think, just for humans in general, just comparison. Like, you know, you just kind of see, man, like, or just like this, you get caught up in these ideals of, and it's such barriers of just, if only I had this, I could record this, and if only I had this, I can record this, and you know, if only, oh man, if I had his brain, I could write these lyrics down. You know, like you just get jealous of songs that just because somebody else wrote them,
right?
And it's just like, man, just something that God has been teaching me in my songwriting and in my creative work. It's just like, first off, like I've given you everything you need to do it. Like I've given Scott what he needs in order to write and record this music. I've given you the experiences to do it. And yeah, just like this, just like a negative mindset on it, you know, of just like hating my own stuff. And it's like, and well, God doesn't do that. He didn't create anything and hate his creation, you know, like it was good, you know? And there's a lyric in, and just like this idea of like in indie music, having to constantly fight for yourself, and just in any industry. I think freelance work is brutal. Like it is just, you have to fight. And there's this line in this song by a band called Mickey Ficky over in Nashville. And I don't know if they write very emotionally healthy songs.
Unhealthy?
Emotionally healthy songs.
Oh, great.
So a lot of the songs are just like, wow, that's you tell me what I need and I'll tell you what I need. And if you can, it's just like
wholesome.
These are the needs I have. So can you meet them? No, let's compromise. Okay. But one of the lines in a song called Easy is, my arms are sore the more I squeeze. And I was finding that to be like, the more I strive in music, like striving is just not great all the time. But we feel, especially in our culture, like in terms of any freelance or creative work, like you have to fight. And it's what you hear in interviews. Like you listen to interviews with like Donald Glover, where it's just like, I had to fight for every mile that I got. And I'm starting to realize, like, first off, that's where it becomes exhausting for me, where it's like, I'm doing that, and what's the reason? So I can elevate myself, you know? But that's not the reason we're created, you know? We're not created to elevate self, you know? Like, just the beautiful thing of being able to make music that connects with people in order to help or to make those connections. Like that's shalom, right? That's what that is. Me being able to connect to you through sultry, like that is beautiful. And any, like, Halloween, vice versa.
Yeah.
Like that is something that is deep because it's like this understanding of each other, and that, like, it's almost like this idea of a mountain being formed, right? Like we'll see how this works out. You guys can cut this if it doesn't. But as plates come together, right? Tectonic plates, they push up, right?
Yeah.
And so as two people come together, when it happens perfectly, it should form and point you towards God, right? And so, like, that wasn't that night that we were just jamming out. Like, that wasn't something where it was like becoming more inwardly obsessed with yourself,
right?
As easily as it happens for me, where it's just like, oh yeah, Brooks loves my music, and just diving deeper into the core of, like, my sinful nature. It's like, no, it's like, wow, God's doing a beautiful thing in Brooks's life, and God's doing a beautiful thing in my life. So that idea of, like, that's been the biggest obstacle, is just getting out of the mindset of striving and having to strive and having to be successful, because it's not the case. Like, that's not, making money in music or being able to do it full time is not the measure of a good life.
Right.
So
you talked about selling yourself, which is, I mean, it's a cold but very accurate way to describe the business side of being an independent anything. What are some practical steps you take when promoting your brand?
Oh man, when I was younger, I used to really put a lot of thought into it. And again, just like that idea that we were talking about, like just this striving, it was just like, I was like, I'm going to give the most polished speech I can possibly get, like a whole PR press kit. And those things are helpful for sure. For me personally though, like I really stopped trying to like, my goal is to not sell myself, and like not, it's just to present myself.
Sure.
So I'm not trying to get somebody to buy into it.
Right.
I'm just trying to get somebody to know me. So it's just like, hey man, I'll just like, if I know who I'm talking to, I'll just start emails. Emails are great. Like I've gotten almost all my gigs in Knoxville through emails or through word of mouth. And so, like, just connections like that, just being, a part of the community. That's a big part. Like, especially being in coffee, like you get to know so many different people. So Taryn, our friends over at Crafty, the brewery here, they some of their bartenders would come into Mahalo because Knox Brew Hub is right down the street, and so they're connected to that. And so getting to know them prior to even doing those shows was a big part of being able to play there a few times, and got a lot of friends in the other coffee shops. And so whenever gigs come up or sometimes shows come up, it's just good to have those connections. But also with the cold emailing, like that's brutal.
It's no fun.
It's not. And so I really did used to like put like, oh man, I'm going to give my best 3 songs on here. Here's a link to my Spotify. And now it's literally just like, hey man, saw you guys do shows. Love to hop on.
Yeah.
And for that kind of stuff, they're usually pretty cool about it. But it's not bad. Like I do have a press kit and stuff like that, that I like to send out if I'm trying to land something a little bit more heavier. But it's just like, I really did just stop like trying to puff myself up and just be like more authentic and like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. And there's a way to do it while you're like really selling yourself. I'm still doing it, but there's just, if anybody listening, this is my advice: take the pressure off. Like, it's not this big thing, you're gonna get some yeses, you're gonna get some nos.
Totally.
And there's a great quote out there where it's in terms of just creative work, you can never take success or failure personally in those matters,
Yeah.
Like, so I really try and hold on to that.
Totally. How can people find your work and your art, Scott Apple?
Yeah, man.
Sell yourself.
Yeah. Let me give a plug. I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff, SoundCloud. I've got my rap on SoundCloud.
Oh my goodness! Things I'm learning.
Hold up. You have rap?
No. I did rap when I was in middle school. Under the Big Apple was my.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, you can find some of my music on those platforms.
Just under Scott Apple.
Scott Apple. Yep. It's a real name. Okay. Again, just want to emphasize that point. I didn't know when I was have to sell myself, I was gonna have to sell that I'm a real, like it's my real name. It's not the part they tell you. Most people are like, oh, it's a stage name. We've talked about that.
We have.
Scott, dude, It was awesome to talk to you.
Man.
Thanks for hanging out with us and sharing your life and your passions.
Thank you.
Hey guys,
This is great.
I had fun. We all had fun. Just wanted to remind everybody that Fresh Ground Music is back on Spotify. Remember, we rebranded, and our little EP,
Our little app.
our little EP is back on the wavelengths. What do people say? The waves, the radio waves.
I don't know that people say that.
I don't know either, but you can listen to Fresh Grounds Music back on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Plus, Amazon Music, iTunes.
Yeah.
All the above. Yeah.
Cool.
Good to me just for a night. It seems that you've been playing tricks on my old and weary heart, it seems. There is no more time we run, of course, for now. Sunset, sunrise to horizons in our skies. There is no more time we run, of course, for now. Sunset, sunrise to horizons in our skies. Could you be good to me? Would you be good to me just for a night? It seems that you've been playing tricks on my old and weary heart. Could you be good to me? Would you be good to me just for a night? It seems that you've been playing tricks with my old and weary heart, it seems.
This podcast was recorded and produced by Freshly Squeezed Studios. You can find out more about Freshly Squeezed on social media, as well as freshlysqueezedstudios.com. You can find all of Scott Apple's music on all streaming platforms. Thanks so much again to Scott for joining us this week. Thanks again for listening, and as always, stay fresh.